What's up, everybody? My name is Jalen Phillips, also known as Jalen Telisa, and you are now tuned into yet another amazing episode of Grace Talks, Diary of a Believer. I am so happy that you guys are still here. So, obviously, I haven't said anything too outrageous or too offensive to the audience just yet, but hang around and I promise I won't disappoint. Speaking of hanging around, let's get a little corporate here. I need you guys to follow this podcast on Spotify. There's a button at the very top of the cover art that says follow, and also a bell notification right next to it. And so if you click both of those options, it'll enable the notification settings, which also allows for you to receive updates regarding any new episode that I am to air out every other Monday. And also, I am on YouTube. Can you guess what my YouTube handle is? Jalen.Telisa, I believe. Jalen.Telisa. If I got it wrong, check the bio in my podcast. It's a shame. I don't even know what my handle is, but I'm new. I won't always be new, but yeah. So if you do those two things, it'll also notify me also of the people that are actually out there listening and watching those videos. So thank you so much to the people that have viewed me on YouTube and is also already following the podcast. You are the real MVP. And once I get some merchandise later in the season, later in this time frame, I will definitely reach out to you guys first and foremost. Now, off that, let's get into the episode today, shall we? So, if you've been listening, I've dove into how to trust God through times of uncertainty. And I've also given you a few of the tools that I use to minimize those uncertain times, right? And so now, excuse me, for this episode, I really want to change the course here. And I want for us to start looking in the mirror for a second, okay? And so when I look in the mirror for this episode, the first question that I had was, how many of us have been told that we act like our parents, right? I mean, for me, I know that I've been told like plenty of times growing up, and I don't know if it was like the mannerism that I did, or maybe it was just my actual like face, genetic makeup, or whatever. But it made me wonder if genetics outweigh environment when it comes to like how we shape our personalities and being, right? So then I asked a question, well, how many repeated behaviors have I experienced so far that like mimic my parents? And so like when I was told that I act like one of my parents, it was mostly my dad. And my dad is like a Sour Patch Kid. He starts out sour, and then he's sweet. Pause. But he has this like laid backness about himself, like with a mix of like 90s rock star, don't care kind of vibe, like, I don't know. The guy is basically a gumbo of personalities. Okay. Depending on the day, but he cool. He's approachable. He was actually more approachable than Nail growing up. And Nail is my mom, by the way. That's something that, I joke with her. That's her nickname for me. So my mom is cool in her own way, but she gives off like this strong aura, right? And so that could either push you in two directions. So either you're gonna find comfort in that strong aura, or you're gonna find fear. But I can see how I've inherited like both of them in some way. Like I find myself being like my dad on one day and my mom on some days, depending on the situation. But is that genetic? Like I got my dad's feet, I have my mom's body without the boobs, I rant like my father. And, I'm pretty overprotective of Jace like my mother was. And so even when I think about my parenting choices, that that comes from the environment that they created for me, right? Like, so I feel like your environment kind of shapes your personalities, but the genetic makeup is like your being or like the essence of you. Um, and so the reason why I've had to distinguish the two is because I've been deep diving into my childhood lately. Like, I ain't gonna hold you. And I mean, rightfully so, since I'm new at this parenting thing. And, deep diving has shown me what my core values have been like throughout my life. And it's also shown me how detrimental that those core values have been to my life when it comes to fully walking with Christ. And so if we're talking about environment, I grew up in two different households. My parents divorced pretty early, and I don't remember them folks even being together, if I could just keep it a bean. um and so, like, for my father's house, we really didn't have any rules other than like clean up after yourself and don't be loud. And I think that that's like the general dad rule. You know what I'm saying? I'm pretty sure y'all done seen them like memes and stuff about dads like, hey, y'all better not be playing in that toilet. Turn that TV down. And like they far away from the noise, but they don't even bother to get up and check. And so that's what it was like living in my dad's house, okay? And for me, he had more like a buddy approach. And so I rarely got whoopings. I really can't say the same for my brother, but like I said, he was really approachable. And I often refer to him as my best friend. And we had the same music taste, the same attitude about life at that time, and school, which his outlook on school was that he wanted me to always do my best. And when it came to like life, I remember this quote that he used to give us. And basically it was like, it's okay to lie, but when you start to believe the lie, then that's when you've like lost yourself. And I was like, dang, yo, this guy's deep. You know what I'm saying? And so we'll go back to that quote, but that was my dad's way of thinking. Like, look, you gonna lie and you can lie, but when you start to believe that lie, that's when you're in trouble. Like, you're clearly deranged at that point, right? And I did have a bonus mom, so my dad remarried, and she's the one that had the rules. Like, I ain't gonna lie, it wasn't a lot of rules, but as I become older, I start to understand that she took a more old school approach. I feel like she kind of mixed that old school, with that friendship approach. I know for sure she felt like a child should stay in a child's place. We didn't really have a voice, but we could talk to her. You know what I'm saying? It's like we could talk to them, but ultimately it was going to be their decision. It really didn't matter. And no boys, of course. I mean, I feel like that's the general rule for like any girl dad, girl mom. Like, bro, no boys, okay? And she actually introduced church to the household. And it wasn't mandatory. It really was a like, come if you want. And oftentimes the only reason why I would go is because I knew they was finna go eat after. Or like sometimes the church would cook. I think that was Bible study. So I would go to Bible study just to get a hot meal. You know what I'm saying? Like just there or whatever. And oftentimes, I just enjoyed having the option, right? Unlike my mom's house, right? Nail house, she had rules. Church was yes every Sunday when she did go. Like, I would say Nail had to know everything that was going on with me. And I do mean everything. Like, Nail had to get the rundown. Like, if I was to go over a friend's house, she needs to know, of course, where the friend lived, who the friend lives with. Is there a mom? Is there dad? She got to meet the mom. She got to meet the siblings. She got to ask about the fam. Like, yo, Nell needs to know everything before she just signs off on this situationship, okay? And of course, for her, no boys. No boys. And I'm gonna tell a funny story, right? Because although my mom was strict, like now that I look back on it, she wasn't that bad. Of course, both of my parents had their mistakes in their situations or whatever. But now funny. So I wasn't allowed to see boys, talk about boys, or have a boyfriend, right? I remember one time she was like, I called myself having a boyfriend in the fourth grade because my cousin snitched on me. And so I think this was around the time my mom moved away to St. Louis. And I remember her coming to visit or whatever. It was her weekend or some, whatever. She took me to the mall. It was this pregnant woman pushing the stroller. And she pointed at her and was like, yeah, that's where you're going to end up with this boyfriend talk. I kid you not. I kid you not. I kid you not. That was my first introduction to like relationships. Mind you, I didn't even know what a boyfriend was. I just thought the little boy was cute. You know what I'm saying? She told me if I get a boyfriend, I was going to end up pregnant. That's what I took from the conversation, right? And so immediately turned off. Like, I'm not telling my mama nothing at this point because I refuse to believe that that's how I'm going to end up. You know what I'm saying? Off of a little crush. But that was nail. That was nail. And so curfew was a thing, right? Nail had a curfew. My dad really didn't have one. Like, as I got older, it was, like I said, it was like a free for all at my dad's house. Nail house, not so much. You had to be home by 9 p.m. And she did not care. Like, if y'all know how like basketball games and football games run over, Nail don't care about that. If she say 9 o'clock, you need to be home at 9 o'clock. And I remember one time I tested that theory during my little rebellious stage. I tested that theory and like she did not let me back in the house. I had to call my friend to come get me and drive me to my dad's house. Like she was not opening that door. Was not. And what makes it so bad about the situation, I tried to call my brother to like open the door and baby, he was scared. He did not open the door for me. So long story short, I ended up being back at Papa Bear's house or whatever because luckily for me, he was awake to even open the door. So, we had leisure at my mom's house, but it just wasn't like at my dad's house. Like my mom didn't really like care if we cleaned up, just don't be pigs about it. She definitely valued health. So, that's how me and her would kind of bond. We would wake up, go for walks, or sometimes we would do marathons like the Chick-fil-A marathon, St. Jude, whatever, right? But we definitely butted heads a lot. And I'm as I'm getting older, I kind of understand why we butted heads so much. So within those two environments, there were definitely fights. Absolutely. There were fights amongst children. There were fights with parents. There were like seasons of discord amongst those two different environments, right? And so with that, I think the values in those environments were different as well. So like for my mom, I felt like her values were God, job, family, other. And if I had to say that my father's values were, it was basically family, job, other. Not that many for him, but I swear he's a good guy. I swear. And this is just based off my opinion when I'm analyzing my childhood. Okay. This couldn't even been right, but this is what they gave off though. Don't shoot the messenger. Okay. But when I think about the environment also, I have to add places that aren't just home based. Like I wasn't homeschooled. I was sheltered, but I actually went places, right? And so like the core values of my generation really plays a factor into how I rank mine. And so when we look at the word generational, it means relating to or characteristic of all the people born and living at about the same time. So I found it interesting that it's not just about you and your family. That word also includes your culture, like Gen Z or millennials, Gen X, and so forth. So my culture that I witnessed being around was a mix of everything. You had some kids that could do whatever. You had some that couldn't. Some could walk around the neighborhood and be home before the street lights. Some could have boys around, and some were actually sexually active early. Okay, it was like open fire when I was welcomed into certain places with people from my generation and from different environments. And to me, I had no foundation in the person that I should be in order to combat some of the things that I was being exposed to. So, one household, I could be anybody up to a certain point, right? Because of course those rules are there. It's just that, we'll bend them sometimes. And then the other, I had to be what was said because there were so many rules in place. I wasn't able to like form my own identity. And so the conversation of generational curses appears a lot these days, as I continue my walk with Christ. And so I took it upon myself to kind of look up the word curse. I just need it for background purposes, right? Because we could think we know what a word means, but that's not really what it means. And so I find myself in a lot of these situations. So, I just looked the word up, man. Like, it don't hurt to know. So when we think about the word curses, it means a solemn utterance intended to invoke a supernatural power to inflict harm or punishment on someone or something. And when I read that definition, I just thought that it was so wild at the fact that it highlights the invoking of supernatural power. So we can agree that there is a such thing as supernatural power, whether you're using it for good or bad, is there. And so those fights that I mentioned earlier, to me, weren't really small. I feel like they initiated something that, produced terrible results later in life. And, I can recount a few utterances or C's that were said that, that had that same impact, right? I don't know what their intentions were. And I think that's where the lines blur a little bit. But, hey, you said what you said, unfortunately. So when I put this together and I think about my core values at that time in my life, right? So if I had to say what they were, I would say me, Jalen Owens, me, Squeaky, whatever nickname I didn't have, Squeak Dizzle. Like, I was the core value of my life. And I hopefully you've gathered based on that list that I was very selfish. Like, all I valued was myself, what I wanted, what I thought I needed, what benefited me. You know what I'm saying? Whether it had a negative impact or not, it was what I wanted to do. It's my decision. It's my life, right? And most of the time, I didn't even care about seeing a situation at a bird's eye, right? I'm just going off of initial instinct. Like, no, that's how I felt. I'm offended. I'm gonna take it there. Or I had this strong sense of loyalty to a certain group of people too. So I would take on their offenses as well. And so maybe I wasn't that selfish. Anyway, I only cared about what benefited me at that time. As I look back on certain situations and certain relationships that I did have outside of that group of people that I was so loyal to. Yeah, I came first. And, I bet some of you that are listening to this doesn't really even find a problem with that. I bet y'all like, hey, you got to protect your energy. You're important. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's right. No. And I get if you feel that way after hearing what I said my core values were. Because, like, this generation or this culture, it welcomes selfishness, like self-care days, mental health days. Don't get me wrong. I understand a good mental health day, right? But as a believer, now that I'm maturing as a believer, I am to declare and decree a sound mind every single day. Cast down every imagination and align it up to God. So, do I really need a mental health day, or do I need more prayer time? Okay. Oh, that was good. Not me preaching. Preaching. Okay, back to the message. But no, for real, like this culture, it just welcomes selfishness, right? And with all of these self-care affirmations and manifestations and all that stuff on YouTube, it's just all about them day. Like it's all about them all the way around, right? And the reason why I had those values were not only because of environmental impact, but because of the fact that I came into agreement with some of those utterances. So not only do I have fights at home that are kind of changing the way that I view myself and the way that I view situations, not only am I friends with certain groups, not only am I being exposed to certain cultures and environments, you know what I'm saying? But I also take those things and I come into agreement with those things are going to shape who I am as a person instead of me forming my own self, right? So we all hear that life and death lies in the power of the tongue. And that goes hand in hand if we look back at the definition of a curse, right? When you have a covenant or an agreement with something, it gives it legal power, like a contract. You know what I'm saying? Like it gives it power to operate in your life, and what y'all don't know is verbal contracts are a thing. And so it goes back with the curse definition, utterance, that's saying, you know what I'm saying? In the state of Tennessee, because I'm a former real estate agent, in the state of Tennessee, verbal contracts are a thing. Like you can agree verbally that, yeah, I'm gonna, purchase that home, and the state will honor it. Like it is a legal decree, or I don't even know if it's decree, but it's legal to happen, right? And so when I recount some of those statements that were said, and I'm only going to recount a couple just for like viewership purposes, because these statements were made by people that had a very heavy influence in my life. So like I remember one time someone said that I would make a great trophy wife, and yeah. They said that I would make a great trophy wife, comparing me to like a member in the family, because I assumed that they also were a trophy wife and didn't have to work for anything or had the opportunity to kind of sway through life. That person also said that, I really wasn't smart enough to excel at my dreams of pursuing art, especially with me not doing as well in college, or me not really showing that I'm putting forth the effort to be something, right? And so my career life, it didn't look promising at that time, I guess. And so that's what I was told. Excuse me. And I also remember one time, I was called a whore. Whore is funny. But I remember one time where I was called a hoe, basically. And I remember I was accused of sleeping with my friend's brother because I missed the bus, and he offered to take me home one day. And when I arrived home, the person was there. And, I'm a teenage girl like everybody else. We all have our phases of rebellious behavior. And I guess that was just a mix of them assuming that, oh, she slept with him, or she is sleeping with him in order to get this ride home, or maybe that's just one of the many that she's sleeping with. You know what I'm saying? Like, obviously I couldn't have just been cool with the girl brother. Like, no, you know what I'm saying? Without the friend around, I gotta be sleeping with dude, So, and these were real things, y'all. These were real things that were said to me that I could just remember and, put into context for today's episode. And so I gave these statements power by believing in it later in life. Believing it. And the enemy is so funny because he'll use people that are close to you to give these statements value. Like, oh, they know you. They could have potentially raised you, right? They your day ones. Like they know who you truly are. So you gotta believe this. This is who you are. You're nothing outside of that, right? And eventually I morphed into a whore, which in today's time is considered feministic or whatever pro-woman propaganda is out there today.
My body, my choice.
And so eventually I stopped pursuing art, right? And so these are the actions that I took in order to like bind that verbal agreement that I had come into agreement with. You know, I stopped pursuing art. I became insecure in my talents and about my future. And, you know, later I got in a relationship that caused severe dependency, which led me to being in a domestic situation ultimately. And so, just to piggyback off of that trophy wife statement, that's what it produced. And I guess I wasn't much of a trophy to him at that time, let alone a wife. But I had that idea of this is what a woman like me is supposed to do. This is what I'm supposed to do. So anyway, what's the point here, right? Like, is there a such thing as generational curses? I'm gonna have to say yes. Because of your inability to believe beyond what you are seeing, I feel like people are damning other people to hell by having conversations that just don't include God. So what I mean by that is I could walk by a conversation today just out in the public. They breaking in cars again. All these youth, they just ain't got nothing to do. They broke, they this. Oh, it was another shooting. Oh my God, this generation. Or you see a young lady and oh my gosh, she just, the little Ice Spice mini skirts. Now I've been saying for like a little minute fully, so I kind of know what's out there. And because my YouTube is messy, I still know what y'all be out there doing, even though I don't listen to secular things. I know what's out there. I try my best to block it, but I still know what's going on out there, right? And so I could walk past the conversation and y'all sitting up here talking about these people, talking about the influence that they got, you know, talking about who they looking up to or what they exposed to. And y'all did it. Y'all did it. The people before us set the tone to what we looking at. Like your actions from the previous generation influences what's being produced today, right? And that could be traced right back to how cultures, certain generations view God, right? Some view God as this like harsh being. Some view God as this love all, say nothing. He's just nice. He loved me the way I am. I ain't gotta change nothing. He know my heart. Like y'all did this, okay? So again, we're having conversations that don't include God. Like, and basically, if I go back to the contract reference, you are the signor looking for a signee to come in and sign the agreement that you have put in place knowingly or unknowingly, right? Because some of y'all don't know what y'all doing. Some of y'all really don't know that you are speaking death out your mouth. You are cursing people out your mouth. And so by action, that curse that you put out there, people are coming into agreement with it by action, or the spiritual realm is coming into agreement. The supernatural power is coming into agreement with that curse, and by action is the result. That's what you're seeing. And so, just so y'all know, I finished Matthew. I have this newfound love for the New Testament right now, and I'm still digesting Matthew. Like I cannot get over Jesus right now. Like, and I am in love with the New Testament. And it's just so amazing to me what he was able to do on this earth, like nothing we have seen, right? So I'm gonna fast forward because I finished and I'm at the end, right? So I'm kind of like, I ain't gonna lie, I'm kind of scanning because I'm like, okay, this the crucifix. Like, we all know what happened, right? We all seen Passion of the Christ. And so I'm just skimming. But it's this one, like, verse or passage that kind of stands out to me, right? So Jesus is about to get crucified. But before he can, like, get up on the cross, there's a judgment that needs to take place. And, so they getting ready to judge. And I guess it's left up to the public whether or not they're going to crucify Jesus or these other two people that obviously deserve it. And so the judge is conflicted because he like, okay, this man is innocent. I don't want nothing to do. I don't want to kill him, but I got to fulfill the law. Right. And so he go back out there like, look, y'all sure y'all want to crucify this man or what? Because, like, I got some thieves over here. I got some rapists over here. I got some murderers, you know what I'm saying, that probably need to be up on there. I don't know if I want to crucify this guy. Like, y'all gotta tell me something. You know what I'm saying? And so the people from the crowd was like, yeah, we down with that. As a matter of fact, I don't care what's to come. Right? And so the judge is like, look, all right, well, I'm finna wipe my hands with y'all because I don't want no parts. Like, whatever happened after this, that's on y'all. He looking up like, God, I told them I ain't want to do it. I'm just doing my job. You know what I'm saying? And so the people out in the crowd, right? I'm paraphrasing. This the hood version, you know. But the people out in the crowd was like, yeah, we cool with that. They basically was like, we're going to take on this curse for my generation and generations to come. Now, he said that for real. We're going to take on this curse. We're going to take the consequences of this action of killing an innocent man, not only for myself, but also for generations to come. This man done set the tone but the generation to come. He done set not even this man. These people done set the culture of not even respecting right versus wrong. They respecting pure emotion. They just want to go off emotion. Like, yeah, this is what we want to do right now. It's the wrong thing, but this is what we want to do right now. Don't that sound selfish to y'all? So, which is the situation with a lot of us today, guys. You know what I'm saying? It's like we have learned our values from previous cultures. You know, we have learned our beings and who we're supposed to be, our makeup from our environments and from, you know, the environments that are formed for us. And some of those values, like, we can admit that they're terrible. We, as a culture, have terrible values. As a generation, have terrible values. Now, because we are parents, I don't know if we're finally, you know, accepting Jesus Christ. And half of us ain't even parents. We're just vulnerable right now. We don't know why. You know what I'm saying? And so because we're in that spot, we don't have any choice but to look in the mirror and identify, you know, what culture we want to create, you know, for the upcoming generation. And so I really want to do this. I'm going to put the mirror back on me, right? And so when I'm thinking about the culture that I want to create, when I'm thinking about the person that I want to be, the first thing I had to do was recognize my repeated behaviors. I had to sit down and look at that mirror and accept the fact that I was flawed. I am selfish. I am dirty. I have dirty, whorish ways. You know what I'm saying? I am broke and disgusted. Okay? And once I came into realization of the truth and took accountability, and allowed God to correct me, because obviously those things, that makeup of me is not the genetic makeup of God. And honestly, that makeup of me that I thought was me isn't even the makeup that God had for me, right? Because he knew us before, you know, we were even formed in the womb, right? He knows our makeup and who we are called to be. And you know, that correction doesn't really happen in a day. Okay. I can't emphasize enough how I've known God for quite some time now. He's been introduced to me throughout my life in certain scenarios, in certain ways. But it really wasn't until this year when I'm starting to really fully understand not only who God is, but what power Jesus had. You get what I'm saying? And so these types of revelations and these types of correction, it really doesn't happen in a day, right? And so it is just something about when you allow God full access, when you surrender, acknowledge, and allow God full access to work, he'll start to deposit insight and revelation to you that is really key in order to reshape your genetic makeup or your being, right? So you can ask him to show you your heart in every situation. And I guarantee you'll be blown. Because half the time when we are saying these things, we are so oblivious to the impact that it could have in the spirit realm. You know what I mean? And you know what? Honestly, I think we just need, some of us just need to shut up. Somebody come to you, shut up. Zip it, honey. Okay? Or sir, zoop. Because nowadays the men is chatty. The men are chatty. Zip it, chatty pants. Okay? Some of us need to stay out of the break room or off the shade room. Or even off of a 3-way call, because those are things. I've been a part of a few. Okay. Like I said, I'm not innocent. I've repented, but I'm not innocent. And I get that. It doesn't happen in a day, y'all. Stay away. Zip. All right. And so the second thing that I had to do was denounce the ways that aren't like him. All of the things that I had seen, or all the things that I've done, all the things that were said, that got me just totally out of the covering of God. You know what I'm saying? Those are the things that I had to come against. I want it out of my contract. I don't want to be like this. I don't want to be in an agreement with these curses. And so when you start to denounce those things, you accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, you know what I'm saying? And you surrender and you recognize your actions, and then you allow God full access. I found out that he's the loophole to your agreement. Because how many of you know that contracts are binding? And by law, you can't break a contract without penalty. Well, guess what? God is the lawyer. Jesus is the loophole. The blood his son shed on the cross is the loophole, y'all. That's when that freedom starts to kick in. But see, here's what I want to challenge y'all with, right? When you break out of these agreements, I want y'all to try y'all best not to go back into another contract. And I know that that's hard. Like I say, it don't happen in a day. But don't go in another contract, right? And if I'm going to use real estate examples, okay, think about it like this. When you sign a purchase agreement for a house, you still have to undergo a underwriting process. That underwriting process is done by a mortgage officer. They're going to double check every financial situation with a fine-tooth comb, okay? And if you have a respectable mortgage officer, they're going to tell you, don't buy nothing. Do not incur another debt while we're trying to clear you for this payment. Do not go out there. Try your hardest not to go out there into the same situations, date the same type of man, entertain the same type of conversations when God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit is sitting up here working double time to get you out of the previous agreement. Don't do that. Try your hardest. And that's why I say it's important to figure out who's in your circle. God-wise, who's in your circle. Because that support system is going to come in handy, especially if, you have a great church community as well. My environment and the bloodline that I come from had influenced me to seek deliverance for myself. And I just thank God for continuing to show me who I am called to be and what my genetic makeup is through him. All right, you guys, that's all the time that I have for today. I always want to thank you so much for joining me to hear some of the blessings and lessons taught by the one and only our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Don't forget, y'all, to follow me on every social media outlet that you could possibly think of. The name is Jalen Telisa. Okay? May God bless you, cover you, and restore any need that you are looking to have filled. Thanks again, y'all. Mwah.